Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation in Spain, day 170 of the current situation, and we'll have a look at some of the news that has caught my attention over the last couple of days in just a minute. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support as always. Now, let's get into some of the news that has caught my attention. We're at the end of the month, of course, the 31st of August today, and we'll have a look at how the month of August went down in Spain from a health point of view. We can see here the balance of COVID-19 in Spain during the month of August. Spain ends August as the country with the highest incidence of COVID-19 in Europe, with almost 440,000 diagnosed cases since the beginning of the epidemic. Hospitalizations have tripled in the last month, and all the autonomous communities, except Aragon, have clearly worsened their epidemiological situation. Things are not going well in Spain. These words spoken by Fernando Simón on the 20th of August. These words spoken by Fernando Simón on the 20th summarized the month of August that ends with Spain reaching 440,000 accumulated infections since the beginning of the epidemic. The figure has increased in the last 4 weeks by more than 142,000, and hospitalizations are not giving up either, according to the latest report from the Ministry of Health. In the last 7 days, 1,693 people have been admitted to hospital, a figure that triples the numbers recorded at the beginning of the month. In Madrid, 14% of hospital beds are now occupied by COVID patients, while in Aragon they account for 13%. So there we go, that's the balance of the health situation in Spain during the month of August. And as we saw from the words of the Chief Health Officer, Mr. Simón, things are not going well. We've seen in recent times how the number of cases has been steadily increasing on the Spanish mainland, and now we can see that the Canary Islands yesterday registered 367 new positive cases, a new daily record of infections for the second consecutive day. The Canary Islands have registered 367 new positive cases in the last 24 hours, representing a record of daily infections for the second consecutive day, and they now have 6,809 accumulated cases since the start of the pandemic. So not good news there for the Canary Islands, with cases increasing. Now we'll have a look at some statistics on the health situation, and if we take a look here at the incidence rate in the last 14 days in Europe, the number of cases per 100,000 inhabitants, we can see that Spain is clearly out in front with 189.6 cases per 100,000 inhabitants. So from a health point of view, the news unfortunately not so good at the moment. Now the Minister of Health, Mr. Illa, came out yesterday to shed some light on the current situation here in Spain. He said that there's nothing to suggest that Spain will return to a situation like that of March. When asked about the current circumstances and how they are different from those that led to the state of alarm, he said that they're not comparable. Things are not like they were in March. It's obvious that there are more cases, but if we evaluate the data as a whole, we see that much more than half are asymptomatic, that the average age of people testing positive is much lower, around 40 years of age. They are milder cases. The pressure on hospitals is around 5%, and fortunately the number of deaths is very different from that of March or April. When asked whether he foresees more restrictions than those already in place, he replies, "More than approving new measures, we must comply with those already agreed. If we do this well, we will succeed without having to take additional measures. Nothing suggests that we have to return to a situation like that of March." So according to the Minister of Health, although case numbers are up, we're not in the same situation as we were back in March or April, which is good news. And he also seems optimistic that Spain is not heading for another severe lockdown like the one we had earlier in the year. Another thing he mentioned is that a lot of people that are testing positive and not showing symptoms are not respecting the 14-day quarantine rule. When asked about this, he said, yes, it is a problem and very bad news. The majority respect the decisions of the health authorities, but we cannot relax. We must all be aware that this is serious. If you test positive in a PCR, even if you feel fine and have no symptoms, you can infect other people. You have to isolate yourself. It's tough, but a pandemic is a forced exercise in solidarity. So clearly one of the problems there, people not respecting the quarantine rules, and he also made it clear that maybe they need to start cracking down on those individuals. Now another headline that caught my attention was this one here in El País newspaper, the Hookah and the Retiree, a story of summer contagion. This is the reconstruction of a summer contagion, one in which almost all the factors behind the second wave occur. Nightlife, a closed workspace, delayed PCR testing, and a lack of quarantine control. It happened to Manuel, not his real name, who spent the first weeks of his retirement confined reading Don Quixote in Zaragoza, when Aragon was the community in the eye of the regrowth hurricane. And it all started, according to all indications, with a hookah. The story goes on to talk about Manuel, a man in his 60s who's getting ready to retire, and a few weeks before his retirement, he has to train a new member of the company that's come in to do part of his job. Anyway, they're forced to share an office space, and over the next couple of weeks, the young guy comes down with the virus, infects Manuel, and of course, as we saw, Manuel has to spend the first few weeks of his retirement with the coronavirus in quarantine. And it all started in a hookah bar. Apparently the younger guy had been away on holidays with his friends. They went to one of these hookah bars, which are very popular in Spain. And of course he shared the pipe with his friends, which led to him getting infected and of course also infecting Manuel. And that, as they say, is the story of a lot of contagion in Spain this summer. Now, as we know, nightlife has been shut down all over Spain recently, probably a little bit too late, but people, being people, love to party, and that has led to various illegal parties around the country. We can see here one in a place called Villa de Cans, in which there were more than 100 people in attendance. And another one that caught my attention was one in which hundreds of revelers were seen without face masks at a large party in a bar restaurant in Spain. Hundreds of young people attended a large party on Saturday night at a bar restaurant in Queixans, a town in the province of Girona. Most of the 300-strong crowd at the establishment Baidu were not wearing face masks or respecting social distancing measures, despite the fact that Spain has seen a sharp rise in COVID-19 cases in recent weeks. And the owner of the bar said, "Every night we have to throw out people for not behaving." Now, a poll in La Vanguardia newspaper asked the question if people are behaving responsibly in the face of COVID-19 after confinement. We can see here that only 13.19% said yes, and the majority of 86.81% said no, people are not behaving responsibly. So that pretty much sums up the situation. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from the last video. One here from Carlos. "Hi Stuart, many thanks for these updates. I currently live in the UK and I rely on your videos more than Spanish media, mostly intoxicated by ideology and politics. Congratulations for your channel. P.S. My full name is Spanish Carlos, if there was any doubt." Yeah, hi Carlos, thanks for the comment. And you're right, Spanish newspapers can be a little bit toxic with their views on politics. Of course, that's a problem in other countries around the world, but here in Spain, it's very noticeable where papers sit on the political spectrum. And it can be very difficult to get an unbiased point of view of what's going on in the country. But as I always say, you have to try to read as many newspapers as you can to get a true idea of what's happening in any circumstance, whether those papers be on the left, in the center, on the right. Always a good idea to read as much as possible. One here from Sean. "A socially distanced beer or coffee or tapa at a terrace seemed like a logical next phase. Meanwhile, total lockdown straight to nightclubs seems to have undermined all the good work that had been done. But I'm not an expert. There are plenty of high-paid actual experts working for the government who decided that nightclubs of all things would be okay. They went from you can't leave your home to you can go to a club in the blink of an eyelid. All the people who have sacrificed to observe the lockdown up to that point have every reason to be really pissed off with government experts." Yeah, Sean, thanks for the comment. It was crazy to go from a total lockdown to opening up everything. I didn't see that happen in other countries around the world. In Portugal, for example, they decided to leave nightlife closed, especially in the big cities. But in Spain, it was the opposite. Things opened up very, very quickly. And people got the impression, obviously, that they could take their foot off the accelerator and relax. And to be honest, that was the message that was given by various politicians around the country. We saw Pedro Sánchez tell people that they needed to get out into the streets and spend their money. We saw the president in the Cantabrian region also say that this virus had been defeated. So that was the message that people were giving. And of course, if you open nightclubs, people are going to go to them because Spain is a country that has all of the conditions to make it a good country for nightlife. Good weather, cheap alcohol, relaxed laws, all of the things you need to have a good nightlife. One here from Nikos. "Surge, wave, spike, hotspot, words used to scare the public." Yeah, Nikos, thanks for the comment. And you're right, those are the words being used in the press at the moment. Every day you read the newspaper, every day you turn on the television, those are the words that you hear. So there is a definite fear campaign, in my opinion, being put forward by the media at the moment in this country. And as a result, a lot of people are scared. One here from John Stewart. "Definitely get the book Iberia. He's a brilliant writer, Michener." Yeah, John, thanks for the comment. And I did get the book. I downloaded it yesterday, I think on Amazon or maybe Apple Books, I'm not sure. And I started reading it yesterday. And the first chapter, absolutely brilliant. And I'm looking forward to completing the book. Great style of writing, very descriptive, and it seems that Mr. Michener was a huge fan of Spain and everything that Spain had to offer, and he describes a Spain that I would love to have seen. One here from Jeff, well, I'm booked for 2 weeks to Portugal next week, very reasonable flight prices with EasyJet. Normally we'd be touring Spain by motorcycle for a month in September, but that's just not realistic now. Of course, things in Portugal could easily change overnight, but if we have to quarantine on our return to the UK, then so be it. Yeah, Jeff, thanks for the comment. You should be okay in Portugal for the next couple of weeks, although cases there are increasing. I think they put that down to more people traveling around the country, obviously more people coming into the country as well. Probably that could be one of the reasons. So probably a good idea to keep an eye on the health situation there, but the health situation in Portugal a lot different when compared to the health situation in Spain at the moment. One here from David, isn't tapas and ración different? Tapas a small dish and a ration a main meal-sized plate of the same? Yeah, David, thanks for the comment. You're right, there is a difference between those two things, a tapa and a ración, as they call them here in Spain. And it is one thing that does vary according to where you are in Spain, the concept of tapas and raciones. There's some places in Spain that give you a very decent sized tapa with your meal, for example in Granada. There's some places in Spain where you get nothing at all. In Madrid, for example, you get a very small tapa if you order a beer or a drink in a bar or restaurant. It's free, but there's some places in Spain where they don't give you anything, and if you want even a plate of olives, you have to pay for it. And here in Madrid, for example, if you go out for tapas with your friends, normally it means that you go out and share a bigger plate, what they call a ración, between 3 or 4 people. And that's the concept of ir de tapas in a city like Madrid. But as I said, the concept of tapas different depending on where you are in the country. One here from AFTP, just a nitpick, the best climate in the south of Spain is on the Atlantic coast, not the overdeveloped Costa del Sol. Spain has 2 coasts, everything beyond Gibraltar is the Atlantic. Yeah, thanks for the comment and feel free to nitpick, feel free to give your opinion. If you think the weather is better in places like Cádiz or Huelva on that Atlantic part of Andalusia, that's your opinion. Lots of people will say the Costa del Sol has the best weather, places like Marbella maybe have some type of microclimate. Lots of people like the weather in Alicante. So there's lots of different places with different types of weather around Spain. And I'm sure people can find the best place in Spain where the weather best suits them. One here from Bob, what do Asturians do differently? No tapas in the middle of the table, fewer visits to bars, a larger comfort zone. Yeah, Bob, thanks for the comment. And to be honest, I don't know what they do differently in that part of the world. Maybe there's more open space there. Maybe people behave differently. Maybe people aren't as social. Maybe the weather is not as good, which means that people aren't out and about as much as they are in other parts of the country. Maybe the fact that there's no big international airport in that part of the world, that could also be one of the factors. But to be honest, I don't know the exact answer. And finally, one here from Nuria. Hi Stuart, I have more and more the feeling you're working for the government. Yeah, Nuria, thanks for the comment. I can guarantee that I'm not working for the government. I would love to have a government job, to be honest. I'd love to have a safe, secure job where I could never be fired and get my salary every month. That is something that I would love to do. But I think you're referring to the fact that maybe I'm a government spokesperson, but I can guarantee that that is also not the case. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. See you in the next one. Hasta luego.